Hello, and welcome to Waves of YA, a podcast focused on young adult literacy, brought to you by the Ocean County Library's Teen Literacy Workgroup.
Hello, welcome to Waves of YA. My name is Summer, and I am a librarian at the Long Beach Island branch.
I'm Chris over at Island Heights.
I'm Casey over at Lakewood.
Today, we are going to be talking about spooky reads, spooky and scary. Let's jump right into it. For you guys, do you have a favorite horror book you'd like to recommend?
Okay.
Or favorite might be a very loaded term.
Yes. So, one that I go back to read constantly, and it's not technically YA, but I read Dracula every year for Halloween. And it's one of those classics that I feel like did such a good job cementing itself that it's definitely good to revisit it. But speaking YA, because this is a YA podcast, my favorite right now, as in I just read it and I'm obsessing over it, is Hearts Still Beating. And that book is by Brooke Archer.
And what is that book about?
It is about two girls who are in the zombie apocalypse, and one survived it. The other one did not, but they found a cure for being a zombie, and they're trying to reintegrate them into society. But her and this girl used to be in love before, but now they have to work out their emotions and their relationship in the context of apocalypse.
Wow. It's like love is complicated enough without like the zombie apocalypse getting in the
one
way.
of you being dead, yeah.
Oh God. Don't you just hate it when your GF is dead?
Yeah.
Hashtag RIP. Chris, what about you?
I feel like my favorite is the Goosebumps, The Haunted Mask.
Oh, wow.
The original show came out when I was 5, and I watched it when I was 5, and it gave me nightmares where I did not read Goosebumps until much later. Even though like I loved horror as a kid, I was like, "Ooh, give me the scary stuff," and like watched a bunch of 80s slasher movies. So like reading it, like The Haunted Mask, I'm like still scary, like still reminds me of like that first time like seeing it and being like, I haven't had nightmares from this. So like it's a mask you can't take off. You're trapped in it, and it is upsetting.
Yeah, that does sound scary.
I will say my grandma used to have the classroom collection. She was a second grade teacher, and she had the Goosebumps collection, and I would just sit down, pull off the cover, and look at them. I wouldn't read them. I was too scared when I was little, but I would look at them, and I would be like, oh, this looks scary.
Let me tell you, I had the exact same thing. I was too much of a weenie to read Goosebumps, but they're really popular. So like I would hear other kids talking about them, and I would love to like read the back covers, and of the DVDs at the library, I would just like read the back cover, and that was about it.
Have you ever heard the Tom Cardy song that's like, I'm too scared to watch horror movies, so this Halloween we're gonna read the Wikipedia entries on.
That's me. That's literally me. Although I'm a little better with them now that I'm sort of a grown-up. I think my favorite horror books that I've read very recently are both by the same person, Crystal Sutherland. A couple months ago, I read The House of Hollow, which is phenomenal, and I read it like in a day or two because I couldn't put it down. It's about 3 sisters who, when they were young, they were walking with their parents in Scotland on a crowded city street, and they disappeared out of nowhere. And they were gone for like a month, and then they reappeared, and they were fine, but they had no memory of what had happened in the past month. All of their hair, which had been dark, had turned white, and I think their eyes were darker too. Like they would look the same, but they had visible differences. And everything was kind of chalked up to trauma, basically. But over the years, there's like this cult following around this story, sort of like true crime phenomena. And it's really affected their lives. And now 2 of them are all grown up, and one of them is still in high school. And her one sister is really famous for like being like a fashion designer or something. But her sister goes missing. And so the 2 younger sisters are trying to figure out where she's gone. And along the way, they're sort of piecing together what really happened to them.
Oh, wow.
And there's also like a bunch of spooky stuff happening at the same time. And that was really good. And then Crystal Sutherland came out with a new book this year called The Invocations. Saying it's about witches really minimizes it because it's about witches, but It's witches in a way I've never seen witches done before. And that's all I'll really say on the matter because you can look it up. But
Yeah.
I really loved both of those. And they were scary, but not so scary I had nightmares or anything, but definitely very atmospheric, which is what I like in a horror book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you guys have a favorite subgenre of horror?
Oh, I like ghosts and possession, like the spooky, like how do you fight a ghost? You can't touch it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also the ghosts and possession things tend to be gothic horror where it is atmospheric. And that ties in with my like I enjoy historical fiction. I'm like, yes, tell me about the old timey days. And then there's normally like the element of like mystery tied in of like, well, who's the ghost? What did they do? So I like the blending of genres with that. And that you kind of get like elements of different genres, the like details. And like, again, how do you fight a thing that's not tangible?
That is true. Very supernatural, like the show.
Yes.
Because what do? They shoot ghosts with rock salt. Is that
Rocks,
what
yeah,
they
rock
do?
salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that's so funny because like, how do you shoot something that's not real? It's like you shoot it with a gun. Not really. I really like creatures, like a creature feature. I really like vampires. I like werewolves. I like werewolves, but not as much as vampires.
Correct answer.
And
I read Anne Rice in 7th grade. Like,
wow.
yeah, my parents were very much like, yeah, sure, read it. You'll be fine. If you're scared, don't.
And I really like sort of I don't know how to explain it, like a primeval forces kind of thing, like something unknowable, an ancient evil.
Eldritch.
Yeah, like an ancient evil reaching out sort of thing. And I like the mystery element of like, why is all this happening? Like, have you ever seen the horror movies by Dario Argento?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
What
like Suspiria is probably the most
I love
popular one.
Suspiria.
Yeah, have you seen the newer one too?
I did a double feature with them.
I love them both because like they're so different, but they both hit differently, you know?
Yeah.
But sort of like that, like the weird, spooky, atmospheric vibe that he puts on. What about you, Casey?
I like body horror the best, I think.
Really?
Yes, but I
You'll
also
like House of Hollow then.
yes. I also like body horror as in this movie might be a little bit old for our audience, but The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, probably
I've
one
never
of
seen it.
probably one of my favorite movies. This alien ship crashed into the Antarctic and it was frozen. And these research scientists happen to dig it up. When it infects you, it makes a perfect copy of you that you cannot tell. And you have to guess who is the thing and who's not because they never tell you who is until it's too late or when they were infected. It's so good.
Yeah, so it makes you think, is it like what's it called? A bottleneck movie where like they're stuck in the ship the whole time?
They're stuck in the Antarctic.
Oh, okay.
In Antarctica, they have a research facility. Their helicopter, it's too windy to go up.
Mhm.
They can't escape on like their snow things or whatever because even if they do,
Oh,
where are they
God.
going to go?
I hate a stranded scenario. Like I can't deal with that. But it sounds really good.
It's so good. Oh my god, you should watch it.
Yeah. Have you seen the book? It's called This Delicious Death. I think it came out like a year or two ago. It's YA. It is basically this virus took over the world that turned a percentage of the population into ghouls in the sense that they have to eat human flesh, but they're not mindless like zombies. They just crave human flesh. But society has adapted and created this synthetic human flesh they can eat.
Oh.
And I think it's about a group of people.
Yes. Sorry.
Some of them are ghouls, some of them are not. I don't even know if they use the term ghouls, but they go to like this music festival or something. It's like a summertime horror book. And something goes wrong and there's flesh eating, I guess.
I literally have notes on that just says Zombie Coachella.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Yes. I forgot the title of it because I was just calling it Zombie Coachella the whole time.
Yeah, that's a good summertime book, I feel like.
Yeah, it was super fun.
All right. Our next question is, what is the scariest book you've ever read? Dun dun dun.
I have to think for a second.
No, it's a hard question.
I took notes.
You're so prepared. Get a
know.
gold star.
Yes. So I already talked about The Haunted Mask Giving Me Nightmares, but Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. And I think that's just because like I was in my early 20s, had graduated college, was working a job I didn't like, and like getting trapped in IKEA while like weird monster murders was happening is a nightmare, and also just deals with that like being in your early 20s and being like, I thought I was going to have my life figured out, and I'm working the same part-time job I had in high school and college. So like that element as well of like, this is it, my life has stagnated. And it's like, that's not true. It's just we all hit that point. It's like that extra element of real life scary. But Uzumaki Spiral into Horror by Juji Ito, I have not read it since the early 2000s. It's 20 years now at this point. And some of those illustrations just live rent free in my head forever of like, nope, her face slowly being consumed by the spiral and her like floaty eyeball. Deeply upsetting.
Yeah, I feel like I read somewhere that Grady Hendrix invented or at least popularized the page turn jump scare.
Uh,
Because, like in movies, you know what a jump scare is, but like you turn the page of the graphic novel and then it's like a page jump scare, which I think is cool. I've only read the first volume of that book, Uzumaki. I've never finished it.
It's
But
so good.
I feel like he's very popular right now too. Like he's always been popular, but I feel like he's having a moment.
There's going to
yes.
be, or there's supposed to be, anime on Toonami. However, they've been saying that for like 4 years.
Of Uzumaki or
Yes, of
another one?
Uzumaki. And the guy, Colin Stetson, who did the music for Hereditary, is doing the music for Uzumaki. And
That's gonna be a nightmare. I love it.
I'm so excited and so terrified.
Trying to think of the scariest book I've ever read. I feel like when I was younger, I was more easily scared by books. I remember reading this book when I was in high school. I think it was called Bad Girls Don't Die by Kate Allender. Looking back, I don't think it was particularly scary. It was like a ghost possession story, and the character's younger sister ended up being compelled by this possessed doll.
Ew, I don't like
And
dolls.
me and Chris were talking about this before. And looking back, that really scared me, especially because there's this like dream sequence kind of that happens. But looking back, I wouldn't say it is the scariest, but that's like the one I remember scaring me the most. Movies scare me more than books. Like when I watched Us by Jordan Peele, that freaked me out. I was an adult. This was like a year or two ago. Like at night, I was like afraid to go to sleep.
That movie's so good.
He does a fantastic job of comedy as horror, but with the relief of like laughter, whereas like horror just sets it up and it's like, and then we leave it there for you to be deeply uncomfortable.
I love Grady Hendrix too. Horror Star is the only one I haven't read. His books haven't necessarily like frightened me. In every single one, there is one scene or moment that is viscerally uncomfortable. And I recently read How to Sell a Haunted House, and there I was waiting for it. I was like, when's it gonna happen and what's it gonna be? Because it's like that physically makes you feel uncomfortable. And it happened. If anyone is scared by dolls or puppets like Casey is, don't read How to Sell a Haunted House. Because I was talking to Chris about it and I was like, I feel like this would have been scarier if I was the type of person that was scared of dolls and puppets, but I'm not. I collect dolls, not to the same extent as the character in this book does, but
What's
I
the
just like
puppet's name? Wait 1 second. It's gonna drive me crazy.
Is it
Pumpkin.
pumpkin?
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
Not pumpkin like the
Pumpkin.
vegetable, like Pumpkin.
Yes. If I had to say my favorite, not my favorite, sorry, the one that scared me the most, I would say there's this book called Hex by Thomas Hoyvelt.
Oh, I know that one.
There's this ghost that's haunting this town. She was a witch, and her eyes and mouth are sewn shut, but they've kind of learned to live with her. They have like an app to report wherever she is, so they know, like, okay, she's at this location. If you just throw a blanket over her, you don't have to worry about her. But as I was reading it, when I would like go to leave my room, I'm gonna go, you know what? This lady's gonna be outside my door. I know it. She's just gonna be standing there. I don't get scared very easy, but for some reason that book had me like, yeah, I'm just gonna run into this lady in my house and not know what to do.
Of course. So sad. Alexa, play Despacito. I have heard that one. That's one I want to read.
He just released a continuation of one of the characters in it called Echo.
Ooh.
Yes, which was pretty good. Not as good as Hex, I don't think, but it was good.
Now that we're talking about movies as well, do the scary books that you read match up with the scary movies you watch, or do you like different stuff?
I know a lot of people in the horror community. I'm a horror writer. and I know a lot of people in the community. So a lot of the books I read tend to be from friends and stuff. Like I'll read all over the map, but I also watch movies all over the map. I try to like broaden my horror horizons because even though I have favorites, like I like body horror the best, I will watch just about anything. So from 80s camp to like Ari Aster, psychological thrillers, I love it all. So I would say that they line up, but the fact that they line up is sort of incidental because I'll just read or watch anything.
Hmm. That's funny. I'm not big on gore or slasher stuff, with the exception of Scream. But I tend to really like horror comedy. I think horror comedy is also very accessible if you kind of want to get into horror, but you're a little bit of a weenie like me.
Mhm.
I also love atmospheric horror, so that matches up. I love Guillermo del Toro. I like Dario Argento, which is weird because his movies are very bloody, but it's so clearly not real. The
Mhm.
blood, it's the color of red nail polish, so it doesn't feel realistic to me. And then I love kids' horror movies too. I love
Monster
Coral,
House.
yeah, Monster, yeah, Coraline, a new one by Jordan Peele, Wendell and Wild was really good. I've been watching this one that called Nine, like the number nine, and this is from like
I love
2010
that
or
one.
something.
It's with the
Um,
guys that are like they look like the sock puppet things from like
yeah.
that PlayStation game.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I like kids horror media as well. Like stuff that's right on the cusp between spooky and scary. That's kind of where I go.
Like Casey, I'm all over the place, but I prefer watching the campy slasher 80s stuff versus reading it. It's scary, but like, because I watched it as a kid, where my dad's like, let me watch Nightmare on Elm Street really young. Where it's
Mhm.
Oh
like, it's
my.
kind of just, where it's like, it's just kind of funny to like watch it and like, oh, the special effects, if they're terrible. And like, it's a different level of like, I enjoy watching that. Whereas like, reading it, I'm like, it kind of loses its charm and campiness in a book. But Adam Cesare did an amazing job with Clown in a Cornfield of like catching that energy of campy 80s horror in a book. But I love all the creepy A24 movies, and that tends to line up more with like my creepy atmospheric books that I'm reading. So that matches more. And like Hereditary is the scariest thing I think I've ever watched.
I will
Really?
never watch it
Like,
again.
yeah, I watched it once and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it a second time. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like just being upset and like again like hitting that like you mentioned earlier, not being as scared while reading because like
Mhm.
and Stephen King does a great job talking about it with it of like when you're a kid, like clowns are scary, and then you become an adult and you're like, what if I fall and now I have like hurt myself and I have like medical bills and like bigger problems to worry about than the creepy clown. Where I'm like, the more atmospheric stuff kind of hits into those elements of fear of like, yeah, it's not a scary monster. It's like all the other things, and Hereditary hits into like the family falling apart.
I was like depressed for 3 days after watching that movie.
Yeah. That one never appealed to me. And I think also I'm an aesthetic queen. And if a movie is not visually pleasing to me, I won't watch it. So it needs to have a very nice aesthetic, which is part of why I love Guillermo del Toro and Dario Argento so much, is because their visuals are very vibrant and eye-catching. But it's interesting to say that because I wanted to ask, I feel like some people question why we as a society like horror so much, and this might be getting a little too philosophical. So, like, what are you looking to get out of watching something that's scary? Like, is it the thrill? Is it the, like we keep saying, the atmosphere? Like, what do you get out of horror?
I say this all the time. I think that good horror isn't just scares. Horror at its core is about emotion. Take for example, someone name a really good horror movie. Someone do it.
Ah, um, I can't think of any.
Oh my god.
The Shining.
The Shining. Okay, cool. Because you don't just have like, oh, this is scary. You have family trauma. You have a little bit of comedy with Jack Torrance talking with the ghost and how he's kind of all over the place. You have heartbreak, like, oh, you're watching this family disintegrate. There's all these different emotions that go into horror that make it effective, that isn't just being scared the whole time. It pulls so much more into it. And it really shows us a mirror back at society on how humanity is and how we as people would react. Horror movies also kind of touch on very human subjects too. Like I said, The Shining's about families falling apart. Get Out is about racism, and it shines lights back onto society because it's not afraid to say what it needs to, because horror is all about facing your fears.
It's very well put. I like that.
I know.
And I
I'm
think
like,
it
I have to say
no,
it as
no,
well.
that
I'm
was
sorry.
very thoughtful, and I totally agree. And I think it's so easy to horror is such a good vehicle for metaphor. Like I said before, we are going to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm going to again. But it's kind of heavy-handed when we think about it now. But the whole thing with Buffy was when you're a teenager, it feels like your world is falling apart and the world is going to end because your emotions are so high and so raw, like they've never been before. And then in Buffy, you have the added component of, oh, the world is actually going to end if we don't stop this evil force, because she's the vampire slayer and has to do that. And it's sort of obvious when you think about it like that, but when you're watching it, it doesn't feel obvious.
Yeah, I feel like mine is so much less eloquent than Casey's, but
I'm
it's
sorry.
It's okay. We can't beat it. It's fine.
I know she's here because she's a professional horror writer, but it's fun to be scared. Like that's why people do skydiving. They go to the amusement parks. They ride the scary roller coasters. It's fun to be scared in a safe way, where you're like, "Oh, that was so scary," but like you're strapped into the harness. Like you're probably going to be fine on your roller coaster. Like the scary movie is happening, but it's on a screen. Like it can't actually hurt you. So like you get to have this like scary emotion that is safe, where you're like have that experience without being like, "Oh no!" Like actual car accident is scary. Getting thrown around on a roller coaster, fun.
I can't relate. I do not like roller coasters.
I like
But
some of them.
I'm like a motion sickness girly. Like
Me
I can't.
too.
Same. I only like the ones that don't do any kind of spinning.
I like a good carousel.
It's a safe way to explore like an emotion that otherwise is like inaccessible unless it's really, really accessible in like a dangerous way. So like a safe way to experience that emotion. And then also we've talked about the social commentary of addressing things in society and issues that either aren't being dealt with or are being dealt with bringing it to a more extreme in your face level. The same way dystopian will take something and bring it all the way to the extreme to address it and bring it to attention. And even if it's more subtle, like, well, what's the trend going on? I can't remember where I saw a thing, but there was a thing that lined up of depending on if it was Republican or Democratic presidency, there were more zombie versus vampire movies where they were like kind of looking into the trend of what's the fear at that time is like the rich having all this power and wealth and like one person versus like a mass of zombie people, like, and they were trying to like look into that, and I don't remember anything because I read it in college, but
Yeah.
it was interesting of like just like the weird, like they're like it lines up pretty consistently over the years, and that just might be like coincidence, but it was interesting.
And it could also be like what kind of horror is popular could have a variety of different reasons, but it all echoes what society is going through. Like recently, back in like this wasn't really horror, it was more like in the paranormal, soft paranormal genre, but like back in the 2000s with Twilight and everything, there were so many vampire romances. And then that reached like a peak of popularity, and then there really wasn't that much vampire content for a while. And now in the past couple of years, I've seen vampires coming back, not specifically in romance, but in a variety of genres, including horror, but also vampires in literary fiction as well. Like the vampire, the monster is always a metaphor. The monster is a metaphor, and I love monsters. I love classic movie monsters. I have a Creature from the Black Lagoon mask. I don't know if you guys know this. Hot tip, anyone listening, Spirit Halloween, the day after Halloween, November 1st, everything's half off. So I sent my husband to Spirit Halloween, and I'm like, you must buy the Creature from the Black Lagoon mask because it is only $30 now. And so now we have it in our house. Our dog hates it. We put it on, and our dog was like, whom? Whom is this? Whomst? But yeah, lots of vampires right now. And a couple of years ago, I feel like zombies were a big thing again for a minute. Probably with The Walking Dead being so popular.
Yeah.
I will say, to Chris's earlier point, horror movies have actually been proven by therapists to be beneficial for people with anxiety.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I guess it lets you experience your fears and then come out the other side
Yep.
in a safe space. how has your taste in horror movies changed over the years? I've already discussed that I didn't really watch any horror movies when I was little, other than like Halloween Town. And I liked spooky stuff. Like I've always loved vampires. There was this like random lost media that I remembered. It was called The Ketchup Vampires, and it was this blockbuster VHS tape about this vampire family that only ate tomatoes, and they had the ketchup business. And then like the bad vampires ate Vienna blood sausage or something. So I've always really loved monsters and spooky stuff, but I was just the scaredy cat. But over time, it got easier for me to watch actually scary stuff. What about you guys?
Up until a while ago, I only really did horror books. I didn't do horror movies. But then when the pandemic hit, when I was in my house and you can't go to the movies or anything, I thought about all the times my friends went to the movies. And I was like, I wish I would have went with them, even though I'm afraid of them. So I was like, when this is over, I know it's a stupid thing to say now, but I was like, when this is over, I would like to go to the movies with them. So I spent the pandemic conditioning myself watching horror movies. But before, when I was little, my brothers would watch Goosebumps on the TV and I'd run past them into my room so I didn't have to see it and be scared. But
Goosebumps is scary.
yeah, but now I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll watch Saw. I don't care.
That's the worst one. I hate that entire genre of horror, and it was so popular when I was in high school.
I love it.
Is that
it's really
like what
funny.
like is that what would that genre of horror be? Saw. I
Oh.
haven't seen it.
I'm probably going to get,
I know what you're gonna say.
yeah, I'm trying to find a phrase that I can say and not.
Because I know it's
have
like a
to
kind of
have
a
poor-
game. I know it's like a game they have to
It's-
play.
There's
It's
a
all
word that
about
comes
torture.
Yeah, it's about torture, but it's also
There's a
Oh.
second word there that Tom would have to
Oh,
edit
yeah,
out for
yeah.
us.
yeah.
So
There is a
it's all about torture. We're leaving it
also
there.
Saw
Oh,
is
yeah.
like a really bad drama TV show with torture in it sometimes.
Yeah, that doesn't
Like there's
sound
like
fun to me.
there's a whole hospital arc. It's so weird. And the Saw 6 for some reason is just about the health insurance industry. It makes social commentary and it tries to do it in a drama setting, but then there's also people cutting off their own limbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
So,
It's not fun. That's not a fun time.
I like it.
I
think it's
wasn't gonna
funny.
watch. No, I mean personally, like everyone has their own thing. But
No. I understand how it's not for everyone, definitely. I think it's hilarious.
yeah, and some people are like desensitized to, again, like I am really do gore. If it's really fake gore, if it's very clearly fake, I'll be fine. But I don't really like stuff like that.
I got
But some people are like fine, and they're like, it's fine, it's fake. Me and my husband have this joke where like I think it was like a movie where something happened to someone's finger, like their finger broke or something. And I think I flinched, and my husband said something like, "Don't worry, it's just a carrot." The sound is just a carrot snapping, and so now whenever watching a movie and like someone gets hurt, we're like, "It's just a carrot," but it could be anything. But that's our thing. It's just a carrot.
Mine has shifted. I still love 80s slasher campy because it's fun, but ghost stuff has always creeped me out forever. But I do like a lot more atmospheric things, but I'm also old enough to appreciate the atmospheric and like subtle creepy. So I think that's just like growing up a little. And like I love Freddy Krueger, and like gore doesn't bother me when it's campy gore. I watched, I think, every version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to ever exist, and I think I own all of them.
I
Yeah,
love
I
them
Texas
twice.
Chainsaw
That's
Massacre.
another one I feel like I viscerally couldn't like. I feel like that one's gory.
The original, not at all. There's
No,
very
it's-
little blood in the original.
You don't.
Okay.
It's all off screen, and like it's the suspense of you hear the screams and don't see it.
That being said, it's a very disturbing movie.
Yeah, it's all your brain doing most of the work, which is the worst thing to be in
That's
charge
true.
of this.
Yeah.
Because Nightmare on Elm Street, you see it and it's funny and it's campy and Freddy Krueger's making jokes. And that you're just like, well, he dragged her into the red room and there's just screaming.
There-
Okay.
The
that
red room is covered in taxidermy and like body
Oh,
parts and that.
no.
It's not like the red room from like 50 Shades of Grey. It's a
Oh
very
God,
different.
I am not as brave as you guys.
Because, for example, off of Chris's point, I just think when you can't see things, it's that much scarier. It's ancient now, but the Blair Witch Project,
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
think-
true.
I think that movie's probably one of the scariest movies I've seen, and it's because number one, you don't see anything; it's all left to your imagination, and number two, 90% of their reactions to things were real because they were told to improv. They didn't have a script. They were given loose beats that they had to get to. And as long as they got to those things or did those things, a lot of like when they lose the map in the movie, the two other people didn't know that was happening, but the guy who lost the map did. So they were getting upset with him for losing the map. They didn't know that was in his instructions. And furthermore, they stopped feeding them after a while.
Oh, jeez,
Which,
Louise.
like, say, like day one, you get a sandwich and a soda and some chips, and then the next day you just get sandwich and some chips, and then the next day you get a sandwich, and the next day you get half a sandwich. Like
That's
they
like
did that.
abusing your cast.
Yeah,
But that's a whole nother problem, whole separate problem.
I think that came out when I was like, it was still in the 90s when that came out. So
I was one. I think it came out in 99.
Okay, so like 9 for me, and I never finished watching it. I think that was like the first horror movie I've never finished to the end. Because again, my dad liked horror and was like, yeah, it's funny. Like, it kind of made fun of it, which also helped it not be scary when I was a kid. Of like,
That's
we're
true.
just laughing at this.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. Like what your parents watch will affect what you like as an adult. One of my favorite movies is The Mummy.
I love that movie.
And that's because my dad had it on like all the time when I was a kid. So now it's like still one of my favorite movies. So we've been talking a lot about stuff that's scary. Slashers and blood and the roller coaster feeling. Do we have any recommendations for people who want to get into horror but are a little bit of a Halloweeny, if you will, that want something spooky instead of scary? One of my suggestions is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This is sort of like a little bit of a murder mystery with some ghosty elements. It's about this girl, and she can see ghosts, and she more specifically can see death. So death is this physical being, like the hooded, not necessarily a hooded figure. He's like a dark mist. Because from the time she's young, whenever she gets hurt, she heals like automatically. Like her whole thing is that she can't die. She's tested it even. She can like fall down a flight of stairs and she'll be fine. It will hurt her, but she'll be fine. And when this happens, she will see death. And after a while, he talks to her too. And she goes to live with this, she's an orphan, but she gets sent to live with this family at this manor house. And she sees death there more frequently than she does regularly because one of the people living in the house is like very ill. So he's always there hovering. And while this is happening, there's like a mystery element going on. But it's not really scary. And there's like a little bit of a romance element, but it's definitely spooky. What about you guys?
I think a great thing for people who aren't sure if they would like it are anthologies. And anthologies are collections of stories by multiple authors. There are a bunch of horror anthologies. One of the good ones I read was Slasher Girls and Monster Boys. There's another one that recently came out called...
Is it The Black Girl Survives This One?
Yes, that. And then there was one that came out just a little bit before that called Night of the Living Queers. And the great thing about those is there will be different styles in these books, different levels. But the great thing is if you're like, I'm not feeling this story, this one is too scary, you could skip it and go to the next one. So you still get your little taste, but you're not beholden to a certain writing style or a certain atmosphere or even certain genre within horror.
I think that is awesome. I didn't even think like that element of like, oh, you're not feeling one, you can just move on to the next. Also, like everything has to be tight. Like there's no fluff in any of those because it's a short story. So it's like we're coming in and we're getting out. Mary Downing Hahn, who does pretty much, I think, exclusively ghost stories. She's a JYA split author. So like some of her stuff is in children's, some of her stuff is in YA.
Oh, yes.
She's a good lead in from like you liked Goosebumps, jump up to her to the next level and then kind of move from there. They're all shorter books. They're creepy, but there's not anything too horrible. Also, like all the really bad stuff was like in the past because it's happened to the ghost, not the current day protagonist. And then Phantom Heart is a retelling of Phantom of the Opera that actually has ghosts in it. Brings in some like musical theater. Like there's different elements to it where it's a little creepy, but not too scary.
Sounds good. Another one I just thought of was the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco. And that's, again, it is a spooky historical mystery series. The first one centers around the Jack the Ripper case. The second one centers around the legend of Vlad the Impaler, better known as Dracula. The third one is about Houdini is in it. And I think the fourth one is set at like the Chicago World's Fair. And I think H.H. Holmes, the serial killer,
Yes.
is in it. And the main thing is like that the two main characters are medical students in it. Like not necessarily medical students, but they study dead bodies. That's like their thing. And there's a bit of a romance in it as well. And that one's really cute. So it has the atmospheric gothic elements, but it's not very extreme, I should say.
The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein is similar to that, where it's her dad or uncle is Frankenstein, the doctor, and so she's like kind of involved in like figuring out the mystery. And I feel like that's somehow tied in with Jack the Ripper too, but I might have mixed the two series together.
Sometimes there's like I feel like media crossover and like horror mashups,
Yeah.
like where they like just bring all of the monsters into one.
There is a book called The Perfect Place to Die, which also has H.H. Holmes in it.
I want to read that
But
one.
I thought it was okay. But the problem is it's not as scary when you know who H.H. Holmes is. Because as when you're reading it and you're like, oh, this guy who runs the hotel is so nice. I wonder what's happening to these people. H.H. Holmes was America's first serial killer. Fun fact.
First documented.
First document. Yes, I'm sorry. First documented.
I'm just teasing you.
People could have gotten away with it before. No. I'm like, this girl's trying to find her sister who supposedly stayed at his hotel but never came back. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't finish it. I'm sure her prospects are not good.
Hey, she could be fine.
Maybe.
Oh, the sister. I thought you meant the main character. I'm like, well, sometimes the sister's probably not good. Yeah.
Another one that's a more recent book that's like a good entry is I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me.
Oh my God, I want to read that.
Jameson Shea. I loved it. My note next to it was I support women's wrongs. It's so good because like it tells you right off in the blurb. Our protagonist is a black ballet dancer in Paris, and she makes a deal with some eldritch god to be more successful. Like she is putting in the work. She's the top of her class, but she's not getting offers from the Palace Ballet due to racism. So she's like, I want the recognition I deserve. So she makes this deal. And it's the after effects of her making this deal where it's nothing like everything could be an accident. It could be an accident that she fell down the stairs and now that position's open for a protagonist to have, or it could have been the deal.
I love that you said that because that's a book I want to read and I wasn't sure because, I don't really put much stock into reviews, but I like knowing that you liked it because then I will be more likely to read it knowing you liked it.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of body horror in it too. One of the characters can shift form between his human form and the I've made too many deals and I have a scary monster form.
Love it. God, I wish that were me.
And it's set up for a sequel, so we can see more.
Yeah,
hopefully it's it gets written.
Category of horror that's God forbid women do anything.
And I was like, the entire time I'm like, no, I support this. And like a couple other characters that you see have made similar deals where I'm like, no, do what you gotta do to get ahead, girl. Like I support this.
Sometimes when everyone goes through the fact that the Paris Ballet is racist, and the only recourse is to make a deal with a mysterious being.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta. Sometimes you gotta. Maybe they shouldn't have been so racist. I really like Melissa Albert for spooky horror, but not super extreme horror. She has a new book out called The Bad Ones that I am very excited to read. I haven't read it yet, but I think centers around these girls and this, again, like an otherworldly being that I think it used to be like this being that they made up this like schoolyard rhyme about when they were little and now they're older and it's sort of like mysterious things are happening that's coming back around. But I really like her book. She always has like a dark fairy tale element to her books as well.
Ooh.
Have any more questions we'd like to ask?
I feel like we've kind of hit.
One of our questions was, what books or media scared you as a kid? Which I think is interesting. And this can be anything. This could be like a book, this could be a movie, this could be like a weird cartoon character, a commercial.
I have two off the top of my head. The first one was Encourage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh my God,
The-
yeah.
It's
so
so good.
there are a bunch of different episodes that scared me, but believe it or not, it wasn't the actual show. It was the very end of the credits when there was a disembodied mouth and it like laughed. And for some reason, I watched it as an adult and I was like, I don't get why I was scared. I was so terrified of that as a kid. And the other one was in Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. There's this character named Mandy in that show. She's like a very grumpy girl, and she's forced to enter a beauty pageant for some reason, and they try to make her smile. And when she smiles, the universe falls apart. It's silly, but back then, the concept that something like that could happen scared me really badly.
Oh yeah, that's like, it makes you think.
Yeah.
I was really scared of the movie Coraline, and I love Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite authors. I read the book Coraline when I was older, when I was like 13, but when I was younger, I saw the movie. And context, so I was probably 10. So I was a little older, like, but again, we've established that I'm a weenie, and I was with my two younger siblings that were probably at the time like 7 and 2 or 3. I don't know why my mom probably took my younger brother because she couldn't very well leave him home when he was a baby. And so at one point he got upset. I'm not sure if he was scared or like just fussy, but she took him out of the theater and left me and my younger sibling there for a little bit. And I was so scared. And this affected me for like months after. Like I couldn't go to sleep.
Do you know the story behind how that book got published?
Yes, I do.
For the listeners.
I don't.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to like jump in and tell the story.
What happened is Neil Gaiman wrote this book and he gave it to his publisher, and she said, I think this is too scary for kids. And he was like, oh, well, don't you have like a young daughter? Why don't you give it to her? And then if she thinks it's too scary, then it's fine. We can put it to a different age group, whatever. She goes, okay. So she brings it home to her daughter, and her daughter loved it. So she published it. At the premiere of the movie, he meets this daughter for the first time. And he was like, do you know it's because of you that this movie was even made? Like, you said that the thing wasn't that scary. And she goes, oh, no, it was that scary. I just wanted to know what was happening.
Yeah, it's scary to kids, but to them, they're reading about a kid having an adventure, a scary adventure, but an adventure. And to an adult, it's about a child in danger. And that's the difference.
Yeah. So obviously, Goosebumps, the haunted mask. And then, despite being totally freaked out by that, would watch Are You Afraid of the Dark and be incredibly afraid of that as well. They hit a different level of scary than the slasher movies that were like fun and campy, so it's unsettling. But I, to this day, remember reading Short and Shivery had a story about a girl that was home alone with her dog, and an escaped murderer from the jail ends up in her house during a storm pretending to be the dog, and she's like sick, home alone. So she throws her arm over the side of her bed to pet the dog and is like expecting the dog, and the dog to like lick her hand and be like, you're okay, like comforty dog thing. And it's the murderer on her bed that like licks her hand and like had
What
killed
is
the
this?
dog.
What was this again?
This was Short and Shivery, and it's like a 5-page short story. Totally freaked me out because I was like a latchkey kid.
Was this meant to be for kids?
Yes.
Or what?
It's like scary stories to tell in the dark.
That's terrifying to me now. That's like bone chilling.
And I read this while I was home alone with my dog as a kid, and I was like,
oh my God,
totally like freaked me out enough to call my dad and be like, when are you coming home? And he's like, I'm at the store going food shopping, I'll be back soon. And I'm like, cell phones were like barely a thing at that point too, of like, and he's like, you've been home alone tons of times at this point, you're fine.
So, yeah, but I never thought about this thing.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is a new nightmare that I didn't think of. That was just like the possibility, and I'm like, every door was always locked. There was no way someone escaped murder in the middle of like Bricktown was going to sneak into my house. But it was scary of like, but what if they did? I was like in middle school, I think, by that point too, of like, but it could be true.
I remember I was also scared of the basilisk in Harry Potter in the movie. Not, oddly enough, not the snake itself that we see at the end of the movie, but its voice that we hear throughout the beginning when it's like whispering and Harry can hear it. The voice freaked me out. And I just remembered also that even though I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it scared me sometimes, particularly Hush with the gentleman.
That's why that episode got a ton of awards.
Yeah, who was the guy? I can never remember his name. He's the gentleman. He also plays Abe Sapien in Hellboy, and he's Billy in Hocus Pocus.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. Yeah, it's always, if there's a creepy, tall monster, it's Doug Jones.
I love him.
I thought of one more for myself. I remember watching it. It was my friend's birthday party, it was like not a friend's birthday party. It was some kind of 4th of July or like some kind of celebration. And I didn't feel like hanging out with the adults or the kids. So I was just sitting in the playroom and watching TV, and Spirited Away was on. And I was traumatized by No Face.
No Face is scary.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the things that scare us.
I just remembered what cartoon movie like freaked me out as a kid. It's Little Nemo and Slumberland, which I think me and 3 other people watched. But it has a goop monster forest situation that like sucked you in. The rest of it was like had scary parts, but the goopy monster nothingness taking over, it's a nightmare. Sucking into everything and like taking over freaked me out.
That reminds me of
I watched it a million times, but that part was like consistently scary. Like, oh no, must keep watching.
Yeah. That reminds me of there's a spell in Dungeons and Dragons that you can do if you're a specific kind of witch. It's called Gelatinous Cube, where you turn into a gelatinous cube, which I have done before, which is fun. It's fun to be a gelatinous cube. Lastly, are there any horror books that you are very excited to read that are either coming out soon or that are on your TBR? Why don't we say like just like one or two? Well, I want to read I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me, definitely. And I also wanted to read one we talked about with H.H. Holmes, but if it's Casey hasn't given it her seal of approval, maybe not.
It's fine.
It's fine. A solid what, like C+?
Yeah.
It passes, but just barely.
It's not new, but I only read the first Clown in a Cornfield, so I'm waiting probably till more fall to read the second, and is the third one out?
It should be coming out, but I don't know when it's out. I know the author of that.
I know. So those 2 I'm looking forward to, and then if we get the sequel to I Feed Her to the Beast, definitely want to read that one.
I feel like I saw it on Libby, but it might not be out yet. But I feel like I saw a picture of it. And what about you, Casey? Is there anything?
I'm trying to find the name of this book that's coming out. Who wrote Bird Box? Josh Mallerman, who wrote it. There's a book coming out called Where Are You? Talk about books while I look.
Oh gosh. Well, I also want to read The Changeling by Victor LaValle. That's not a YA one, but I know Victor LaValle is a well-liked horror writer.
I found it.
You found it? Okay, good.
Yes, it's called Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. Yes. He wrote Bird Box, which is now a movie. And I also am really looking forward to reading The Watchers because it is going to be a movie coming out on the 7th.
Oh, I saw a commercial for that.
Same.
Dakota Fanning's in it, right?
Yes.
That one looked cool. Awesome. Do we have any final comments we'd like to make?
Neil Gaiman, if you're listening, I love you.
Oh, yeah, we love Neil Gaiman. He's another one that's like good for spooky but not scary, I feel.
Yes.
Maybe one day we'll get him to... we're never going to get him on this podcast. All right, well, thank you all for listening to this episode of Waves of YA. We hope you have a very good spooky season, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to check out the Ocean County Library's website for more podcasts and events. All titles mentioned in today's episode can be found through the Ocean County Library, free with your library card. Until next time, happy reading.